G'day guys, we are the Brisbane Brothers.
I'm the Clevo King.
And I'm the RC Master.
Together,
we are the Brisbane Brothers.
These are our 3 channels, guys. Get on board, check them out. For those of you that don't know, this is what we're working on here today, guys. We're doing a roadkill style camshaft, timing chain lifters, valve spring swap on a 351 Cleveland. This engine is for a car we're building on our channel here, guys. Check it out. So, what do you reckon?
Did you say camshaft swap?
Yo, camshaft swap. From a little one to a big one.
Big one. Lopey idle. We're talking, you know, that idle that makes the soft can go flat when you got an open drink.
We're gonna crank this baby up, guys. She's gonna be from about 250 horsepower to about 400 when we're done with her.
Double.
We're gonna make a whole series of videos along the way. Get on board. Thanks, Dan, for being the cameraman, helping me out. Check out his channel, guys. Phew. G'day guys, it's the Clevo King here. I'm just about to show you guys how I install a new camshaft and timing chain set on a Cleveland. This is a pretty basic build, so I'm not going to be degreeing it in, so we'll just line it up dot to dot, and I'll give you a few tips and show you how I do it. Cheers guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you smash the like and subscribe. Right, let's have a bit of a look here, guys. This is the Clevo. What I've done now is I've run around the block with a wire brush and we've cleaned up. Well, first I use a sharp knife and I use WD-40 and cleaned all of this area here where the gasket goes for the timing cover. Clean the timing cover here where the water pump goes and the back of it. So that's ready to go. I've done the sump rails and I've done the pan rails up here, guys. Mint particular attention paid to in the corner of this rear main cap and along there for silicone, so we've gotten rid of all of that. We've cleaned it all up, and this channel here in the timing cover, very important to clean that one up. Something a bit funny I've noticed here, guys, and it worked, is this timing cover seal's been pushed into the back of the cover. It's bizarre, so I'm not sure if I'm going to fit this back like this. It wasn't leaking or anything, but yeah, just something I just noticed. Alright, so here's the camshaft laying here. It's a Crane Blue Racer. Now, what I like to use for camshaft break-in lube for pretty much anything engine is this driven engine assembly grease. This is what I'll try and run you through the way to do it without getting your hands too dirty, because when you're fitting a camshaft you want your hands to be as clean as possible. I've been working on the engine all day. I've gone inside, I've cleaned my hands now 2-3 times. When I picked up my ratchet I dirtied them again straight away. Most important thing about this job is cleanliness is next to godliness. It has to be as clean as you can possibly get it. Don't rush, take your time. Have a bit of a look. Check out that. Check out the quality of the bearing in there, guys. It's mint. Look, there's a bit of oil there. Let's wipe that oil out of the way. Wow. Alright, so what I was going to show you was if you get a little piece of wire like this, you can wrap it around a bolt on the engine somewhere, push it on somewhere where it's not going to get in the way. Right, see what we've done there. Now I've put the bolt that we removed the camshaft, old camshaft with, into the front of the snout of this new shaft. Now, anything new out of the box, just because this is brand new, it's not perfectly clean, ready to fit. We're going to have to hit this with some wax and grease remover and give it a quick polish. The number one thing that kills an engine is foreign material being left behind when people are doing a job like this, knocking dirt in somewhere, leaving some dirt behind. So have a really good look, make sure you get all your dirt out of the engine. Be mindful not to flick stuff where it shouldn't go. Now what I do is I just get a wax and grease remover in a tin like this, give it a bit of a shake, and we'll give this a bit of a spray and we'll wipe it down with this microfiber rag, and then we'll hang it onto this wire. Now it's going to be a bit awkward to try and do this with the camera, but hopefully you will get the idea. Okay, so when I get in, wipe all of the bearing surfaces. We'll just do this back half as good as we can. be good. So we'll stand it up here. We'll grab this wire clip and we'll wire it up. Just give me 2 seconds. I'll put the camera down and I'll sort this out. Alright guys, so wire there. You might not always have this air conditioning stud. You could hang it off a fuel pump, you can hang it off of a long wire. Some stands might be a bit lower than this and you might not have the clearance. This is just how I do it guys. So good spray to get all of the protective coating off of here before we fit it. Microfiber rag guys, so it leaves no dust behind. We'll just wipe all the where the bearing goes. See, the front edge is not so important, it's more the lobes. The lobes, the bearing surfaces. Alright guys, it smells good, looks good. Yeah, this is going to be great. I'll give this a few minutes to fully dry and evaporate off. We'll open up this driven engine assembly grease and I'll show you what I do. Now the reason I like to use driven engine assembly grease, if you're buying a new cam and you're getting the packet that comes in it, don't put it on the bearing journals. You should only really put motor oil on here guys. This one here, the distributor gear, this isn't a high volume oil pump, it's just a standard Mullings, and I pulled the cover and I had a look inside. When you're doing something like a camshaft, just have a look at a few things that you can. Make sure no metal's gone through the engine, it looks really clean. So having a look at that really excited me. And then the other thing that we did was had a peek at the valve stem seals in the heads here. If you look at them and they're dried and broken up, then there's a good chance a little chunk of that could have fallen into the oil pan, gone sucked up through the screen, gone in here and scratched the housing, and you'll see evidence of that. And then it could potentially twist the rod, or well, there's any number of things that can happen there, but this pump is in perfect condition. So what we've done, we've hung it up, it's here drying. Now this engine assembly grease here that I use, driven oil soluble. Right, so we're going to reach in, going to get some of this and we're going to really plaster it into the dizzy gear here guys. That's going to get the most liberal coating all the way around, heavy set, and I'm going to do the same thing to the dizzy. Now this isn't going to be there forever, but this just ensures that on the startup of this cam is going to be well lubricated. Alrighty. Alright, so lubed up all of the lobes now. Have a bit of a look. Lubed all the way around. The next step now guys, I like to use Penrite HPR 30 2060 weight with extra zinc. Perfect for flat tappet cams. You don't really want break-in lube on a bearing surface. The break-in lube is awesome anti-friction properties for two bearing surfaces, like between a lifter and a cam and push rod end and a roller rocker. There's a few areas of the engine key where it works good, but on a bearing area it will actually start to chew the bearing out prematurely. So the worst thing about break-in lube is if people leave it in an engine for too long, it actually does damage. You've got to break the engine in after the first half an hour, 20 minutes of running it. You've got to stop and dump that oil, chuck new oil in, check your rockers. Alright guys, so this is how I like to do it. Just motor oil on the bearings, dizzy gear lubed up, all of the lobes lubed with driven assembly lube, HPR 30 oil for these hydraulic flat tappet combos. Alright guys, quickly throwing the chest mount on, put this back in my pocket, and it's starting to get a bit dark, so we want to hurry up here. Let's move some of this stuff out of the way. Okay, wipe that bearing just so it's clean. Alright guys, what we're going to do now is grab this cam off of the wire. move that wire out of the way, just chuck it into that toolkit. Now with the camshaft, you want to support it. You want to be very careful when you're installing it, guys. You want to find the straight center line of the engine. You want to go straight in. Alright guys, this is it. When you get stuck, just give it a little rotation, guys. When you get to the next bearing journal like this, you can pause for a second, have a rest, have a breather. There is no rush with this. Let's get the money shot here, guys. Oh yeah, beautiful. Oh yeah. Oh wow, now I like to give it a bit of a spin. Oh wow, guys. I'm excited. This is it, it's coming together. Okay, the next step, guys, camshaft retainer plate. So I like to put a bit of lube on here too, so we'll get the driven brake-in assembly lube, slap a nice little film on here. Now this stuff's oil soluble, as I mentioned, it's real good, and I'll slap a bit on the front face of the cam since it's going to ride on there so it's not dry. Just a little bit, guys, it's better than nothing. So we'll get this, we'll stick it there where it's meant to go. The grease will hold it in place. I'm going to reach over here. I'm going to grab my two little 7/16 head nuts. So there's one going in. Here you go. What have we got here? Two going in. It's getting dark fast, guys. I'm under the pump. Alrighty, let's get this job sorted. See what I did there? I just shifted the plate, guys, to line it up with the old bolt marking, so you know that it's centered with where it was riding on the bolt heads, top and bottom. Now we'll grab the 7/16, give these a quick nip. Now don't go too hard on these can break very easily, so just nip it, nip. I'd say, I think they're 15 foot-pounds. Pretty much fuck all. Okay, so that's lubed. While this is lubed here, while it's open, we'll grab that and we'll quickly chuck a bit on the front face of this cam. If you're really camshaft retainer plate, if you're really anal, you could put a bit of grease here, guys, into the center of this timing chain, a little bit into the center of this crank keyway so it slides on. Now it's getting a little bit dark. I'm going to put the chest mount back on and I'll try and film hanging the timing chain set, getting it started. Alright guys, so what's going on now is we're going to chuck this timing chain on. You want to line up your keyway and your dowel and crank keyway. You want to line up your 0, because this isn't a very performance cam, 0 and the dot. If it was a multi-keyway, I'll do it in another video how to dial in a cam. So we've looped that, we'll get it on here, guys. We'll start sliding it on. Now the trick with this is to get them both where they want to be happy at the same time, which sometimes isn't very easy. Kind of running out of light, guys. I think I've got that. Dot to dot. That's it. Push that back, yep, there we go, it's on. Okay, now sometimes they're not so easy. You might need to use like a puller in reverse to put pressure on it to push this bottom one on. If they're interference, like a roll master sometimes. That just went on beautiful. Let's have a look at our alignment, dot to dot. Looks like we might be spot on. Alright, g'day guys, Clevo King here. Day 2 on the camshaft install, lifter swap, valve spring swap, timing chain swap on this 351 Cleveland roadkill style. What I'm trying to show you here today is the simple way of doing a cam at home with really basic tools. So Where we left off the other night just before it got dark was I got the camshaft lubed and in. I've got the timing chain on and lined up. Now, it got a bit dark so I had to stop the video, but what I was trying to say was you want to look here at the two dots. You want this dot to point perfectly to this dot, the 0, and you want the keyway on the crankshaft and the dowel on the camshaft when you're installing it to be lined up too. Now I can see with my eye, because I've done a lot of cams now, that that's straight, but a little tip is to get a straight edge. This is just a jack pole, and to line it up on the dot to the center line of the crank, to the center line of that dowel. Can you see that, guys? It's pretty much spot on. Just double check that it is at top dead. So the old screwdriver with the bent tip that we use to pull the lifters out comes in handy once again. You can gently poke this in the spark plug hole and sit that on the top of the piston. And look, it might sound a bit dodgy, but if you've got pretty sensitive hands, you'll easily be able to feel where the piston's at the top. Then you just want to check again that that's lined up and that that's lined up. It's very easy to get a tooth out, and it'll be very hard to tune that out later on. The reason I've lined this particular timing setup dot to dot is because it's a very basic, it's only a 3 keyway. So you've got an advance and a retard. Now these are normally keyed in at 4 degrees. Advance 4 degrees, retard, which is too much. If I was fitting a Rollmaster set, which has 7 keyways, you can incrementally time it in, moving it 1 degree forward or back, or 2, or even 4. Worst case. But look, to be honest, I've never had an engine that's that bad out. You can pretty much guarantee, because this is a factory crank, that the keyway is going to be lined up pretty good. Another little tip, which we'll show later on, is when you install the harmonic balancer, you just want to quickly check in relation again with number 1 piston being up at the top dead, that the timing pointer is pointing to the right spot on the harmo, because the harmonic balancers on a Cleveland have a really nasty habit of turning on themselves. This one's in very good condition. It's mint and it's balanced to suit this engine. Now you'll probably see marks like these in other harmos that you undo, even factory ones, but the reason I know this one's balanced is, if you have a bit of a look here at the con rods, you can actually see that they've machined them. And look, rounded. See, this one's pretty flat. They've only just kissed the edge here, so that was probably the lightest rod when they were balancing, and they've had to remove quite a bit of meat off of all these other rods. So this engine's really nice. It's externally balanced, but it's dynamically balanced inside. So they've done the rods and they've done the crankshaft. Normally you'll always have this big drilled on the counterweight, but these two here are fresh. So this thing's really going to rev hard. It's our budget build. Check out our other channel I'm doing this work for, the Brisbane Brothers. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe. I'm going to get into it, guys. Now I might have to go and get the chest mount on, and I'm going to show you, so we're going to muck around here a little bit to figure out that the piston is exactly at top dead. Then we're going to stop again. We're going to just double check before we move on that these are perfectly lined up. Alright, then we'll get into the next step, which will be fitting the fuel pump eccentric back onto the camshaft, which I've cleaned up a bit, guys. Gotten all of the gunk out of it. We've got the timing pointer here, which I restored. We'll have to put the oil slinger back onto the crankshaft. The timing cover here, guys, the other day I noticed that the seal was in backwards, so I've sorted that out. We've got a new water pump. These are the valve springs we'll be fitting in another video. We're actually going to run a single row pulley set, guys. The car's manual steering, so there's no point running the 3-row. That's the sump over there, which I've cleaned right up. We've got the fuel pump here, new lifters. I'm going to show you some tips. Make sure you watch my video on how I set preload on lifters. I do things a bit differently, guys. Might learn something. Alright, so we've got that bent screwdriver we used to get the lifters out. Pop it into number 1. Gently find the top of that piston. Now we're just going to check Ow. Yep, let's go down straight away. Again, it's going back down the other way. So nice and slow, nice and steady. Okay, so what we're going to do now, guys, bit of driven engine assembly grease into the inside of this fuel pump eccentric. Now there's two halves, one rolls on the other. This isn't that important because it gets heavily oiled and it's quite old, so it's worn in anyway, but I just like to put a bit of lube everywhere where I know there's going to be two surfaces riding on one another. See that edge there? Rides inside that cup. So we'll slip that back in into there, guys. Alright, now the next step, after we've lubed that up, because these bolts, well, I've given it a bit of a clean, but because they're a bit greasy, we want to just chuck a dab of thread locker on it. Just a little spot, guys, like that. Alrighty, so now that's lubed up. A bit of a look, how's all of that looking? Good. Now something I wanted to point out, this little tang here cut out goes into the camshaft dowel hole there, and the bolt obviously goes into there, so just make sure, like, don't try and put that into one of these grooves or something. Gotta just line that up, so we'll put that there like that. Alright guys, keeping in the roadkill theme, we've got this Budgeto torque wrench here. We've just put it onto 40 foot-pounds, which is what I like to do these camshaft retainer, or should I say fuel pump eccentric bolts. Now, little something I'll just mention here, guys. Not all the time, but sometimes if you're going to assemble an engine that you don't plan on running a mechanical fuel pump through the side of the block over here, what you will sometimes need to do is make another washer up under here for the thickness of the eccentric, so the bolt doesn't bottom out in the cam without fully grabbing the plate. That's just a little tip. Now see how I've put the loop in there? This thing spins beautiful, guys. So what I'm going to do quickly is click this off to 40, and then we're going to grab our engine assembly and we'll put a nice coating around the outside here. Alrighty, so let's get into it. I'll try and do this one-handed. Alrighty, she's doing up. Just give it a second click, just to... You don't really need to do that, but just make sure that's right. So, 40 foot-pounds, we'll stop that shaking around. That's our new timing chain set. As I said, guys, everything centered. Alrighty, so I'm happy with that. What we've got to do next is get our lube here. Don't forget, it's quite important to chuck something on here so it's not dry on startup. So both sides of this thing you want a nice liberal coating of brake-in lube. Something I'm gonna do now quickly, guys. This isn't very important, you can just do it by hand. You need a little bit of end float on the camshaft. When you put it in, they can't be completely tight. So you want to grab it. Did you hear that, guys? Listen to this. Now I can feel that's about 2 or 3 thou by hand, but if you have a dial gauge set up, guys, pays to quickly check it. What you want here on, well, what I like is 2 to 6 thou. You don't want it too tight, or it'll be binding and the engine won't rev freely, and you don't want it too loose, otherwise you're going to get a little problem called cam whip or cam walk, and the cam can move backwards and forwards as it's being loaded up by the distributor gear and the oil pump drive shaft. Alright guys, so that's lubed up, that's torqued up. The next step now is to get a rattle gun, pop it on here, and with a 15-16 grab the 1/2 inch here. Now the reason I do this is so we're not disturbing the timing just yet. Take this bolt straight back out and chuck on the oil pump slinger. So we'll line up the keyway here. We'll just slowly walk it, just walking it guys. Every now and then they're a bit of a bitch to get on.
Yo, got the row over. Yo. Alrighty, cameraman, see you guys. You. Make sure you smash that like and subscribe, guys. You. Perfect timing, bro. I need a cameraman.
To blow a bit of carbon out. You know what it's like with these race engines.
You. Okay guys, what you want to watch out for with this oil slinger is just get it lined up on the keyway. You don't want to pull the keyway out. So what I did was I got it close and I got this screwdriver and I just gently tapped it. Had to pull it off, line it up 2 or 3 times. It's not super important this piece, but I like to put them back. So a little, I work them on just gently like this around. Gee, that was perfect timing to rock up. I was wondering how I was going to film how I walk this back.
Yeah, no, this is a 2-minute job. I just knew my spider sensors were like, yeah,
Thanks bro.
I need to come and hold the camera
Okay,
for someone.
so that's on, that's back. Now see, it's a bit loose back there. There's actually a step on the crank, guys. See, if you zoom in here, it's like an interference fit up the front here. And down the back it's actually quite easy. So just take your time lining it up to get it started, because the last thing you want to do is lift this edge of the keyway and start pushing it out of the way or bending it out of the way or something. Yeah, I think a mate of mine might be over. Alright guys, so that's it. 40 foot-pounds on there. Now what I was going to say was, the reason I did 40 is because the socket's straight on the old roadkill torque extension bar here. If you were going to run an extension to get clearance or whatever, or for any reason, you've got to add 5 pounds for every extension because of the extra loose in the connections and the deflection through this bar. Anything about 6 inches or over. Alright guys, that's it. So we didn't.
Oh, there you go. Oh, he's Corey. Hey, he's Corey.
How you doing, boys?
Not
What's going on, man? Have you been, man? Haven't seen you for a while.
Okay.
Just doing the install video. It actually is on.